With Chapter 11, we are in the beginning of developing a macroeconomic model. So what this slide shows is a bird's eye view of the economy. So if we're looking over here on the determinants, on the internal market forces, we're talking about things like how big is the population, what are people spending their money on, how much innovation is going on, that type of thing. When we're down here talking about external shocks, we're talking about things like the Crimea or the Iraqi situation. So you know that within the Iraqi situation, it's going to force the price of oil up, so that'll have reverberations all around the economy. And then in terms of policy levers, we're talking about things like immigration reform. And on the outcome side, over here on the right-hand side, the first three is the one that we're mostly interested in. So when we're talking about output, what we're really talking about is GDP, gross domestic product. When we're talking about jobs, we're actually talking about the level of employment. And when we're talking about prices, we're actually talking about the level of inflation. So these three things, output, jobs, and prices, are the three variables that we are particularly interested in a macroeconomic model. Okay, here we are in the next chapter, chapter 12, dealing with fiscal policy, but we're still dealing with our macroeconomic model. So we're still focused on output, jobs, and prices. And we have drawn in a basic aggregate demand curve and an aggregate supply curve. And we know where the two intersect is going to be the equilibrium. But we also know that equilibrium doesn't mean good. It doesn't mean we're at full employment. If we are a Keynesian, we're going to do something to manipulate the red aggregate demand curve. If we're in the classical system, we're going to do something to manipulate the aggregate supply curve. So as we go forward here in these chapters, be thinking along these lines. Whenever we talk about a Keynesian system, we're talking about demand side. Whenever we're talking about the classical system, we're talking about the supply side. So the two camps have different philosophies. There's a file in your chapter there about the difference between the Keynesian and classical philosophies and assumptions and policy tools, and basically they're opposite of one another. I mean, the Keynesians think the system is unstable, the classical people think it's basically stable, etc., etc. So in the following chapters, depending on which camp we're in, we'll either be talking about manipulating the aggregate demand curve through fiscal policy, through the C plus I plus G. We do that through taxes and spending, buying aircraft carriers or canceling the contract. Or we'd be dealing with the supply side, dealing with immigration reform, job notification, matching up job skills with jobs available, and that sort of thing. So again, this is the macro perspective of the economy, and we're including nomenclature and graphs to try to indicate what the policy tools would do.